Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webcast, 10 Reasons to be on the latest tools release. My name is Brooke Bacon, Marketing Lead with GSI, and I'm very pleased to welcome our main presenter, Tom Gabriel, a Senior Solution Consultant with GSI. Now, before we get started, I want to give you a chance to review our Safe Harbor statement. Sorry, my agenda slide got mixed up here. And just a quick overview of our meeting today, which will be about 60 minutes. We'll take a minute to go over some housekeeping items as well as a brief company overview. And then I'll turn it over to Tom to get into our main presentation. And then we'll go over some upcoming events, and then we'll wrap up with a 10-minute question and answer session. So if you would like to submit a question, all you have to do is click on the Q&A icon down. It's either at the bottom or the top, wherever your dashboard is. You just click on the Q&A and then you can click send. You can enter your question at any time, but all questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. So who is GSI? We are a full-service consulting managed services organization with deep application and industry knowledge. This deep knowledge allows us to develop advanced AI and automation that delivers cutting-edge intelligence. And this unmatched intelligence is what enables our clients to thrive and not just survive. So why do you partner with GSI? We are a full-service ERP, SaaS, cloud, ITSM, cybersecurity reseller, consulting, and managed services organization. And we have advanced AI and automation that are used in all of our products and services. And what that does is it allows our clients to reduce their TCO and increase their ROI. We have offices nationwide and partners worldwide, which allows us to offer a 24/7 global support model. And we're the only partner in the industry that has a 100% guarantee on everything that we do. So here are just a few of the accreditations and certifications that we've received. Our mission is to make every customer a client, and to be able to accomplish this mission, we create a culture that attracts and retains the most creative, energetic, and experienced professionals. And here are just a few of the products that we have developed to help our clients thrive. We've got Genius AI, which is a platform designed to support the development and execution of customized modules for system monitoring, application monitoring, AI, and automation. Modules can be developed and executed for almost any business system. And our clients use Genesis Performance Optimizer to model, measure, and maximize their system performance for all of their web-based business systems. We have Genome, which is our newest product that will detect, analyze, and automate the process of converting customizations into orchestrations. Hopefully you guys are still with me. I know this is some information we're giving to you right now, but we also have Rapid Reconciler, which is our tool that reconciles perpetual, in transit, and received not vouchered inventory. And we have Rapid Approval, which is our application for being able to quickly process workflow approval requests in Salesforce. And we have G Shield, which is our line of security products that we're continuing to expand. And currently we have 2 products, which are our password, JDE password reset, and 2-factor authentication. And as you can see from the testimonials currently on your screen, our clients can attest to the fact that we focus on the business value of their systems and not just their performance. The business value focus allows our clients to transform their systems of record into market share expansion machines. All right, Tom, it is your turn.
All right. Thank you so much, Brooke. You have to stop your sharing to let me grab it.
Perfect.
Thank you, miss. All right. So everyone, first and foremost, thank you, Brooke. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. I'd also like to first say that I hope all of you and all of your family is doing safe and being well. So as Brooke showed you in those couple of prior slides to this, the complementary products we offer and the different types of things that they do, that all plays into today's discussion about what's happening in JD Edwards, what's happening with the latest tools. So I want to start by at least showing you a depiction of EnterpriseOne, when it started way back in 96 as One World or XE, I want you to visually see all of the changes that have occurred from 96 through 2012, be they major releases, major tools releases, dot releases, whatever. And I want you to focus on the fact that in 2012, that's when release 9.1 came out. And if you look at from 9.1 through today, you'll see that there's been a shift at Oracle and a shift at JD Edwards to how major releases, how major tools and maintenance packs are delivered, how cumulative updates have been delivered. We no longer do these quote unquote big bang type of things. We're in a continuous delivery model. And what that means to you is that you get on a release of 9.2, and from that point forward in 2015, there are things that constantly come out that you have to A, become aware of, B, understand how to utilize them within your systems and organization, and C, implement that and roll that out. Now, the reason this is all important is because back 2-3 years ago, Lyle Ekdahl said that 9.2 is supported till 2030. Now we know that it's supported until at least 2031. So the investment by Oracle is there in JD Edwards. Conversely, you as an organization need to have that same investment. And I don't use the term investment to mean monetarily. I'm using the word investment, meaning you need to be more proactive. So if we look just at 9.2 that came out in 2015, and you could see originally when it came out in the first 8 months, 9 months, there was only 3 tools releases for 9.2. But then in the subsequent 7 months, there were just a couple. But starting in mid-2017 to early 2018, you'll notice that there were 6 tools releases, the majority of which were for what? They were for moving JD Edwards into the 21st century as an ERP tool and starting to build in automation, starting to build in augmented intelligence and things of that nature, i.e. Internet of Things, Orchestrator. At the end of 18 into 19, we had 3 more tools releases. You can see from 2019 to 6/20, we had 3 more. And now here we are in November on tools 9.2.5. So I know some of you, if not all of you, are on some flavor of a 9.2 tools release. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with 9.2.4, and I'd like to talk about some of the things that happened in the 9.2.4 releases before we get to 9.2.5. Because what's important to understand is this. As I said, Oracle is positioning JD Edwards to become an intelligent ERP product. It's no longer traditional ERP where it's just storing data. It's now an ERP system that has that adaptive intelligence, the way that the system can make decisions on its own, the fact that the system itself can start to learn how to process. Now, people would think that intelligent ERP is still in the future. It's not. Oracle has already built in some of these tools to make your JDE instance an intelligent ERP system. So what do we need to understand? We need to understand what are all those things that have been happening throughout these tools releases. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk at a higher level to what these are. And I'm also going to explain to you how you, as an individual and organization, should start utilizing certain tools to fully understand what the changes are and how you can use them. And lastly, by all means, if you are still confused or you still have other questions and concerns, as Brooke mentioned to you, you can always reach out to us at GSI to be able to help you with these things, okay? All right, so if we look at just the 9.2.4 release, okay, and we look at, what was positioned there. We can see that there were things like digital transformation, right? A lot of it around orchestrations. There was user experiences with form extensions and personalization. There's always certification of platforms and product. And then basically there's operational simplification and how we can make the system more efficient in the way it processes. All right. Hey, Brooke, can you do me one favor? Can you just let me know if in fact you're still hearing me? I guess not. Am I still connected? Can anyone hear me? So, Brooke, am I connected or not? I guess I am. I guess people are saying what? We hear you. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I'm up in the Northeast where the blizzard occurred, and I have some spotty stuff. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you guys letting me know. All right. So let's talk now about 9242 and the changes there. You had some orchestrator category manager where you're allowed to now put things together in specific categories. And when you export, you can export by that category. And again, I'm going to go over these at a higher level. All right. On the 9243 release, we introduced, or Oracle introduced, what I think is a great thing, an Oracle orchestration debugger. There's also some user experience improvements, and we'll talk about the application enhancements and platform certifications. But what I'd like to hone in on is the orchestration debugger. Oracle now added a button so that when your designer creates an orchestration and you want to ensure that your orchestration works, especially when it has multiple steps, you can now click on this debugger button and it will walk through your orchestration step by step, and it will show you areas where it is failing. So when you do that, you'll notice you'll get your little graphic as to what your steps are. And if there is an error, it'll be a little X on top of the step. And when you click on the X, it'll actually now tell you what is the error that's occurring in your orchestration. And you're able to see all of the inputs and all of the data that you're looking to put into the system, and then what is expected. So now, when you turn around and say, what is my expected output, or what is the output, you'll see that it gives me an equipment status of AV. But yet, when I look at the data and I want to look at what the input was, the input really should be AA. So what do I have? I have an error there where there's a disconnect between that information. So now in that particular step, when I correct it, you'll notice now that that error goes away, all the other steps completed normally, so now my orchestration is okay. Again, a very easy way for you not only to pictorially see what your orchestration is doing, but to see points of failure, drill into points of failure, and figure out how to correct those points of failure. The other thing you can do in this tools release is call a business function with an orchestration. So let's say that you wanted to put in a purchase order or a sales order, and you wanted to be able to then go out and get specific pricing from advanced pricing. You can now turn around and create your orchestration with an input of an address number, and you can say that you want input of an adjustment schedule in a customer price group, and you want to be able to call that business function to pull that information in. And then once that is done, you want to turn around now and get that price and get the ship to an item number and things of that nature. And you want that output returned into wherever it is it's supposed to go. So now you're able to create a more robust orchestration by calling additional business functions within JD Edwards. The other thing you can do is now embed an orchestration without a connector. Before, every time you wanted to do a service request, you had to connect with a connector in between. Now you don't need to do that anymore. Another thing you can do in this tools release is you can select multiple XML files to import your data. And those files can even be compressed files that contain multiple XML files. And when you do this, the system can truly handle how things are imported into the system. And as it's imported, it's making sure that all those XML files, they display the appropriate import options and have the appropriate import options. So now, what is this leading to? You're going to see in a little bit, not only can you import massive amounts of data, you're now going to be able to send back massive amounts of data. So Oracle is scaling Orchestrator to become a more efficient product to handle mass amounts of information, be it coming in or going out. When we talk about a user, and when we talk about a user interface, and we talk about the experience of a quote-unquote citizen developer, they can now add a task folder on an E1 page, therefore making their experience a lot more compact and robust than it has been in the past. They can also say, hey, when I sign on, what pages do you want to see? Your personalized form, you can define one and have a query and that application be executed on that personalized form. And you can define specific versions for batch jobs that you want to execute. And lastly, in 9243, form extensibility. You can hide and unhide some form controls. You're going to be able to rename labels on the form control, be they static. And you're going to be able to do a form extension across all versions of the application. So before you would have to launch one application, do a form extension. Now you can do the same form extension across all the versions. Mobile application strategy, again, Oracle is still using Orchestrator as that tool of choice to do that. And you can see the particular platform certifications in 92443. And last but not least, in 9244, we've had about seven or so enhancements. Again, most of them still around Orchestrator. And you can see that form personalizations, you can now mark a form control as having to be required within the form personalization. I talked to you about the movement of information and the movement of data back and forth. You now have this compression for your AIS output. So now you can compress the output of an orchestration using a data request so that you can return mass amounts of data. A big one, in my opinion, is the fact that now you can have REST authentication to external calls of an orchestration using public key certificates. So that allows you now to integrate Orchestrator with external REST services and third-party systems and cloud services, and you can authenticate all that through a public key certificate. Queue control, you can have your orchestrations run in a single threaded queue. You can have a fire and forget multi-threaded queue. You could define a default queue. So now understanding your orchestration, understanding what it does, understanding the load on the system, you can now put your orchestrations, let them be controlled and processed through the queues that you need to do. And you can turn around and within a CSV file, you can designate the column of data within that file that could indicate a group of data. thereby making your flat CSV file having more structure. So now you can combine multiple rows of data for a single sales order, and you could say for this particular column, as long as it's the same, that header field is the same, I'm going to treat all the other rows the same way. Once I hit a row with a different value, then it's going to be considered a new group of data. Again, a more efficient way to process your information coming into JD Edwards. You can take an orchestration, you can have the inputs to run it, and now you could turn around and have those inputs also be shown as part of the output. And now it's useful for you to be able to echo or regurgitate or reuse those inputs in additional REST responses. I honestly think this next one is huge. Printing of an orchestration. You can now capture the entire flow of your orchestration and print it out, or print it out as a PDF file. You're going to be able to get a summary page which graphically shows you the orchestration, and then subsequent pages are going to give you all the detail. It's going to tell you all the inputs and the variables and the outputs and scheduling. And so think about what this does. This gives you your documentation as to what the orchestration is, and it's able to help you understand how to handle errors, how to document it and provide an orchestration for audit purposes, or recreate the orchestration, God forbid something happens to it. 924, you're able to expand and collapse your orchestrations. You're able to have nested orchestrations, parent and child orchestrations, and you can collapse or expand any of those steps. And when you include the orchestration as a connector or notification, that connection and notification can then be expanded and then could be additionally expanded for all of the nested components. And you can have multiple levels of this nesting. All right. So those are the enhancements in 924, be they 2, 3, or 4. Okay. So what do we have now in 925? 925 recently came out. And again, two things. We're going to be talking about the tools enhancements in 925. But we also have application enhancements on the application side for 925. And I have to be honest with you, it's the most application enhancements I've seen made to JD Edwards in quite some time. So I'm not going to talk about any of those. I will talk about in a little bit where you can go to find all of those. But for those of you on the phone that not only help with the CNC side of the fence or whatever, but you're also a business analyst or you work with the functional side, you may want to invest in looking at those enhancements on the applications and understand what can or can't be used within your organization. So let's start talking about 925. The first thing is we finally got to a point where we can do package builds via the web. Okay, so now we can actually assemble a package, we can build the package, we can deploy the package, we can do all of it through the web client. All right, so this means you can include all the package definitions, assembly, deployment history, all of that via the web. You call your server build, your build processes, all from the server, and all of this is now, available versus the old ONW and the old package build process. When we talk about your server manager console and your server manager agent, you no longer now have to configure manually the communication between the two. There is now an automated configuration process that takes the TLS-based communication between the manager console and the manager agent and does that for you. All right, so you no longer have to run those platform specific commands and no longer have to worry about, you know, putting things into the key store and the trust store for the build process. Now, the one thing you have to understand is if you look at the last line, that these both the, you know, the version 1.3 and the version 1.2, those WebLogic and Java servers that are supported, the release levels that are supported with this. So again, one of the things we always have to think about with JD Edwards, one of the things specifically for tools, is we always have to understand minimum technical requirements, the MTRs. With my architecture, what do they need to be on in order for me to be able to handle this tool's capability? So it's not as simple as saying, oh, geez, it's out there, let's go ahead and put it in. We have to make sure that we meet these MTRs as well. Form extensibility improvements. Now, there's a difference between a form extension and a form personalization. A form personalization simply lets Tom rearrange components on the form so that I can see them in a manner I want to see them. A form extension allows you as a user to bring in other aliases or bring in other data elements onto the actual business view so that users can see them and act upon them. With this form extensibility improvement, you can now take a data element and put it on the grid, even if it was not exposed in the business view columns based upon how the form was designed. So in other words, if we had 300 columns of data, but my grid only showed 200, I can go out to the other 100 and grab one of those and now expose it onto the grid without needing to go through the form design aid to do that. And when I put that new data element on the grid, if someone is using a form personalization, they can now see that as well, and you can now mark the field as required for somebody to do something with. So when you do the form extensibility and you mark that field as a required field, when Tom goes in and he does his personalization and I use that field, that's going to be on my personalization and it's going to be marked as required. So I no longer have to go into the, you know, FDA and make the change. All these changes are made on the fly and they then passed over into the base level of the code. So if it's marked as a required in the form extension, it's going to be marked as required in the context menu of your personalized form. So what does that mean? You no longer need to get somebody involved to do customization work to expose the field, right? You allow your users to be able to get at information that they need to get at. And it's just reducing your overall time and effort. Now, again, these types of things, change management control is also always important. So naturally, IT needs to work with the user community to understand what we should or shouldn't be doing. That's Tom's opinion, okay? I've been talking to you about Orchestrator being optimized for large data sets. So again, Oracle have done things so that now you can get very large data sets, those XML and compressed XML files, right? So potentially thousands of rows of data, and you can pass that result into orchestration, the input and the output. We allow variables now for your file uploads and REST services. So when you invoke that third-party service through the REST connector, we can now upload content types so that now your orchestration designer can start using variables in the definitions of the connector. And if you utilize web-based third-party applications and you utilize them within EnterpriseOne, when that third-party application is in EnterpriseOne, it can share certain data, certain session information, so that now it provides a more integrated user experience. So the ability now to, if you think about that slide I showed you about your ERP system becoming more intelligent, this is allowing the systems now, both internal and external, to be acting on the same level. Configuration of enterprise and AIS servers, you can control now the association between an EnterpriseOne server and an AIS server. So if you as an organization have one enterprise server for all your environments, you can now associate that one enterprise server with multiple AIS servers that are servicing multiple environments. So that allows you to segregate servers, AIS servers, across your entire infrastructure or your environments. And it makes it possible for you just to use one enterprise server to service your complete environment. Those of you that have kernel failures, there's a new enhancement now that helps you quickly identify why the kernel failed. And it allows you to get notification and provides you corrective action in a more timely manner. So you can get email notifications through your Server Manager console. That has been improved so that it shows you the additional information as to why the kernel failed, you know, similar to your crash dump files. It allows you to be able then to act and quickly resolve your problem. And that email notification interface has been enhanced to become more user-friendly and a more HTML-friendly type of interface. This one is key as well, if you ask me. Assertion Framework for Orchestrators. When you can create an orchestrator, we're creating orchestrators really in the hopes of doing what? Making sure that it runs and doesn't fail, and making sure that the information that it produces is what I expect it to produce. Well, what the Assertion Framework now does is it lets you define what values you are expecting the orchestration to produce. And when that orchestration runs, be it, you know, needing a certain range of information or an exact match of a value, when the orchestration runs and produces information or values outside of that, then what's going to happen is it's going to have an exception and it's going to report it to you so you can act upon it. So think about what you can do now with your orchestrations. You can now use your orchestration as a test case scenario with the Assertion Framework to see if, in fact, your operations and what you think you should be, you know, happening within the organization is truly happening by defining what those result sets should be. You have more choice and control over how you're going to use your AIS session initialization, how you're going to initialize those user sessions. You could turn around now, and the system admin can turn around and configure the HTML server to say, don't initialize the AIS session until a user requires it, thereby saving system resources, making things more efficient, and helping you progress the way you need to progress. Lastly, EnterpriseOne search improvements. I don't know how many of you use search or not. I personally like it. I think it's great. You can now put in an exact match. So instead of searching just on 210 and getting results for anything that contains the numerical 210, you can say, no, I want an exact match of 210. And then once you get your results set back, you can turn around and export that now into a CSV file so that you can do additional work or analysis or things of that nature, or you can send it away to some other party. You also have the ability within your search to specify queries or personalized forms when you launch your related action. So when you say, yes, I want to, once I see an item number and I want to go related action to the item master, now I can say, hey, wait, I want my personal form to be the one that's launched. And within that related information, you actually can set up additional search capability across all the available columns that you have within that mapping section of the Search Group Manager screen. And last but not least, online help. When you're in the application and you say, give me application level help, now not only will you get the EnterpriseOne help, but if you use UPK, you'll actually be able to launch your own UPK help as well. And you can now access LearnJDcom when you click the user drop-down menu, from your user interface. And that last sentence is important because when we talk about all these enhancements and when we talk about all these changes, you're going to see in a minute where you need to go to understand it. Now, one of the big things people started talking about was 64-bit, 925 was going to be required. Well, it's not a requirement for Tools Release 925. However, if you are using either HPUX or Solaris operating systems, it is required. But for everyone else, 64-bit being a required level has been deferred. Now, I talked, why is LearnJDE important? Because if you go to LearnJDE right now on their landing page, there's a box that says, hey, what's in Tools Release 925? It's basically what Tom just talked about, right? And you can click on that, and then you'll get to the splash screen, and it'll say, hey, here's 925 for tools. If you want to see the apps, you can see the apps. You could scroll through and do whatever. More importantly, though, when you go to LearnJDE.com, what I would strongly suggest you do is you go up in the search box and type in compare release. And when it comes back and says compare releases, I suggest you click on that. And when you click on that, it's going to launch a page where you're going to say product catalog, compare releases. Now, when you do that, it's launching Oracle. It's an Oracle thing that does this. So you need to have credentials for Oracle. Put in your credentials for Oracle, and when you're done, it'll land on a page where it'll ask you, what do you want to compare? Do you want to compare the application layer, the tools layer? Do you want to compare everything? What is it you want to look for? So say I want to compare applications or I want to compare tools. And this is where I say to the people on this webinar today, you're probably mostly technical, but go to your functional counterparts. Let them in on the fact that they need to do this work too. They need to understand what's out there and what can make their business easier, because it's now a collaborative effort between technology and the functional people. So click on tools, and you have the ability to compare one of two ways. You can either compare by date. So let's say somebody said, I took a tools release on April of 2019. So you can say, okay, show me everything that's changed from April of 2019 through today. Or if you're on tools 9242, you can compare by release and say, show me everything from 9242 through today. And that's exactly what it will do. And if you notice on the right-hand side, there's some quick downloads. If you click on that, Oracle's already done the filtering and everything else, so you can just get the PDF right away. So go to LearnJDcom, do the compare release, you know, look to see what's going on. I know this is an eye chart for you. Understand that there's a lot of other documentation, a lot of other things that we can do for you, and links that we can provide to you to search for information. As I said earlier, don't be afraid to reach out to GSI. We'll help you understand what it is or what it isn't. We're more than willing to help you. Remember one thing though, code current, being on 925 doesn't mean that you as an organization are in a continuous innovation model. Think back to the very first slide I showed you. Think of those arrows with all the dots on them and all the tools releases and everything else. Well, simply because you take one of those doesn't mean that you're current. Continuous innovation means that you're continuously delivering product enhancements, but you as organizations are not only taking them, but adopting them. So Oracle, I've showed you that over the course of 6 to 8 months, at least 2 to 3 to 4 releases within those 6 to 8 months. Think about if you waited a full year, then that means you have 12, you know, potentially 12 things to take. Well, what you should be doing is looking at least biannually, taking these and then adopting them by looking at the functionality, looking at what they do, having your users test them, and deciding if you should or should not layer them into your organization. So get to a continuous innovation model where you're taking it and then you're at least analyzing it and putting it in play. Now think about this. We have a lot of customers that will take the new tools release, they'll take it into their DVPY environment. People will analyze and play with it for several months, if not months, without moving it to production. So you can still start taking these things and analyzing these things. You don't necessarily have to disrupt production all the time. So increase the value of Edwards by evaluating, identifying, and implementing changes. That's going to help you adapt to the market change that Oracle is addressing by doing these enhancements. You're going to be able to succeed quickly by taking them more often, and you're going to shorten your return on investment because Oracle is moving toward automating development operation. They're looking to automate common tasks. They're looking for you as organizations to lower your administrative costs by giving you proactive and self-correcting tools. And this is going to lessen your need for specialized skills. Think about that. Think about how cool it is to have a technology that corrects itself. You're still going to have technical challenges, right? I've been talking about you and consuming information, figuring out where the information is, figuring out if your MTRs are in line, the dependencies and deliverables, you know, understanding with your business peer, you know, do I need the feature out of the box, not out of the box? You know, all that analysis and assessment and things like that. How do I test? How do I have automated testing so I don't disrupt the business? So technical people are still having these other challenges. But guess what? They're also having challenges on the people side too. Because unless we help them understand what they're getting, right? And unless we bring them into the fold of helping to determine if in fact it's needed or not, there's going to be resistance, right? There's a new relationship, a new era relationship between the IT department and lines of business. We all need to start working together because your enterprise resource planning system is becoming a more holistic system where some development, quote unquote, is being pushed down to the user. So it's all about enhancing citizen developer, right? The user is getting more and more capability to do things. Automation is starting to detect and decide and do things. So IT now needs to refocus on what their value is to the organization. And IT is still going to maintain a lot of value, right? But the value is going to be different now. Remember, digital technology, I don't care what type of digital technology it is, the technology itself is great. But unless you turn around and unless you consume it, understand it, it's really not going to matter. All right, so having said all of that, orchestrations are critical in my mind to your business. They can do a lot of things. They can provide a lot of value. As part of this webinar series, GSI, we're willing to work with you to understand how orchestrations can help streamline some of your business process. That's our orchestration planning engagement. At the same time, if you don't have an organization with the bandwidth to be able to do the breadth of what orchestration can do, because trust me, it can do a lot, we can help you by supporting those orchestrations via a managed service offering. So what that means is if we come in and we help you identify 4 or 5 orchestrations to use in your business, and then you don't have the bandwidth to support those moving forward, we'll help you do that. On the flip side, all those changes that create a more enhanced citizen developer type of experience, again, if you don't understand what they all are, if you don't understand what they can do, be it search, form extension, Cafe One, compose pages now with favorites and menus, if you don't understand all that and you want to get educated on that, we can provide you and your organization an understanding as to capability, and we can work with you to help create some of those. So, both sides of that. But before I turn this back over to Brooke, I want to mention one last thing. We have a very, very important event that is occurring on Monday, and I want you all to be aware of it. It's the Great Conjunction. Now, while conjunctions themselves happen every 20 years or so, a great conjunction has not happened since 1623, nor is the one that's going to happen been as good since 1226 AD. This is going to be the best time in our lifetime to be able to see Saturn and Jupiter together with the naked eye. And if you have a telescope or a pair of binoculars, what they tell me is you're going to actually be able to see somewhat close to what you see on the screen right now. So December 21st, the Great Conjunction, unless you plan to be alive on 2080, get out there and take a look. So with that, I'm going to return the session back to the lovely Brooke. I'm going to let her talk to you now about some other things, and we'll go from there. Okay?
Thank you so much. I love that you mentioned that. I'm really excited about that.
Well, you better get out there with your kids and see it too.
Oh yeah, listen. No, I'm already into all of it.
All right.
All right, so let me share my screen really quick, and we will. Sorry, it's just taking a second.
Sure.
I accidentally exited out of my slides, so that's my.
That's all right, Brooke. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so, okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. All right, well, first of all, Tom, I want to thank you for your great presentation. I cut out there for a second, so I apologize. I don't know what happened, but I'm back. So I just wanted to let you guys know about our educational resources. We provide our weekly educational webcast, which obviously you're aware of. We have a GSI newsletter called the GSI Insider, where we have a lot of good articles, very educational, and updates and things like that. We also have a YouTube channel, and then we also offer on-site and virtual workshops, which Tom does. And then we also have on here, this is what you would see when you come to our main screen. So if you would like to sign up for any of these, all that you have to do is go onto getgsi.com, go over into the main menu to events and click on JD Edwards, and then you can see webcasts, blog, newsletters, all of those things, and you can sign up as well for email reminders. Be sure to check out EPTalk.com, which is a problem-solving forum where you can get your questions answered for your ERP questions, and then you can also contribute to others' questions as well. And then be sure to stay in touch with us on social media. All of our handles are currently listed on the screen, and you can see our most up-to-date posts. We have updates on webcasts, events, industry insights, and a whole lot more. All right, Tom, let's see here. And I just want to remind everyone there still is time to submit your questions. We do have a couple of questions here, but if you have a question and you would like to submit it, now would be the time to do so. Tom, our very first question is, okay, Tom, our very first question is, what is the effort difference of upgrading from a 32-bit environment to a 32-bit environment versus a 64-bit?
Basically, Brooke, what we're talking about is if you're on a current tools release and you're in a 32-bit environment and you're looking to implement, let's say, going to tools 925, or even if you're looking to go to tools 9244, and you're questioning if you should maintain 32-bit or go to 64, it will be easier for you and quote unquote less expensive to turn around and go from 32 to 64 during that tools upgrade process versus just going back to a 32 and then later saying on the same tools level, I want to upgrade to 64-bit. You would be basically expending more time and more effort and more money to do it that way. So I would suggest if you're going to upgrade and you're contemplating going to 64-bit and your environment and your other systems support that, I would suggest doing it all at the same time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The next question is, when will Oracle disable the use of 32-bit environments?
Okay, so again, 925 was when that was supposed to happen. Everything I've heard said that with the release of 925, they were going to make 64-bit a requirement. However, because again of all those MTRs and customers with products that weren't 64-bit capable yet, Oracle has pushed off. What I'm hearing now is that it's going to be sometime mid-year or fall of next year. Now, it could be sooner, don't hold me to it, but what I've heard so far is it looks like mid-year or fallish of next year where 64-bit is going to be mandatory.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We have one more question here. And it says, do I have to be on tools release 925 to take advantage of the application enhancements in apps 925?
And the answer to that is no. You can, excuse me, bro. You can go to your app enhancements as long as you're on a later tools release. You don't have to be on both. Now, again, all things being equal, if you're going to upgrade to apps 925, you might as well bite the bullet and do both and do tools 925 and apps 925. And again, if you're on a 32-bit environment, you know, stay on a 32-bit environment, but at least do both, because the effort to get you on apps 925 is going to be there. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm just checking to make sure we don't have any other questions. Okay, look, it looks like that is it. We just want to thank you, Tom, for your great presentation today, and everybody for attending, as well as your questions. And as a follow-up from our webcast today, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit, and you will be receiving an email with a link to our resource center on our website where you can access a recording from today's webcast as well as a copy of the presentation. And after our webcast, we will do the drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card, and anyone that attended the entire webcast will be eligible, and we will notify the winner. And also, if you have any follow-up questions for Tom or myself, please email us at the email currently listed on the screen, and we will be sure to get back with you. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you, Brooke, as always. And remember, everybody, great conjunction, okay? Be there.
Thank you so much, Tom.
All right, bye, Brooke.
Bye.